Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Just Parlays with Chris King. Of course, I'm Chris King, your host, and the talent of this show, because let's face it, there isn't anybody else here. Today is October 12th. We got through day one of the divisional playoffs. We also got through day one of hockey season yesterday, and we'll talk about, the National League playoffs. Games 2 coming tonight, starting this afternoon in Atlanta. We will also talk about a little bit more action-packed day of hockey tonight, as there's 6 games on the slate as opposed to 2. We'll talk about the one college football game on the schedule with the Louisiana Raging Cajuns traveling to West Virginia to take on the Marshall Thundering Herd in Sunbelt action. We'll talk about some of the stuff coming up later this week. Of course, reports have come out now that Tua Tagovailoa will throw for the first time in 2 weeks, but he's already been ruled out for Sunday against the Vikings. Skylar Thompson will make his first career NFL start in that one. Teddy Bridgewater still out as well for the Dolphins. They're unclear if Reed Sinnett, their only other healthy quarterback, will be elevated from the practice squad from that game or not. It's funny how, a couple weeks ago when Miami beat Buffalo, when Buffalo was minus their entire starting secondary, Miami was on top of the world and saying people were using injuries as an excuse for the reason why they won the game. But then we watched Miami get rolled by the Jets, and the story was, well, congratulations that you beat us when we had a bunch of guys that were hurt. It's like, make up your damn mind. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that, other teams are using that as an excuse and then not claim it as your own just because it suits you. Looking back at yesterday, we saw a couple of road teams, or one road team win, and that was the Phillies, who bolted out in front in that game and then had to hold on for dear life to win 7-6 against the Atlanta Braves. So that means Andrew's live bet of plus 2.5 at plus 134 or 138 would have come out as a winner. Buddies, did you jump in on that at plus 4.5 or anything like that, or did you stay out of it after it got to 6-1? But just looking back at yesterday's game, Philadelphia, they led 6-1, then it was 7. They were up 7-3 in the ninth. They were up 7-1, and then it was 7-3 going to the ninth. And they gave up 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth on a Matt Olson home run. Wasn't exactly the cleanest ninth inning by any stretch of the imagination. Infield hit a single, then you gave up the 3-run homer. Castellanos made a nice play on a drive by Contreras that could have gone for extra bases, and then D'Arnaud rounded to short to end it. But this has been a concern with the Phillies all season long. Their bullpen is not good. Zach Eflin was a starter. They put him into the closer role by default because they didn't have anyone else. He got his first save the other night against the Cardinals. Didn't look good yesterday. He managed to get through it. Doesn't mean he was good. Okay, buddies couldn't find it. Got it. D, I know that you were stung by the Braves yesterday in putting together your shot in the dark as well. And Bill saying it's a tough one to call. Zach Wheeler going against Kyle Wright. You have to think that Atlanta, they can seize a little momentum, realizing that they were down 7-1 and made it a 1-run game in the ninth inning. Philadelphia's bullpen isn't great. And you have to look at Philadelphia used 6 relievers yesterday to get through the last 5 2/3 innings of that game. I know that only Brogdon threw more than 20 pitches, but still, you look and you wonder, will they bring Dominguez back after he threw 2 innings yesterday? Will you see Eflin? Will you see Brogdon? Will you see more Brad Hand? He only threw 9 pitches to get through to get 2 outs to get through the 6th or the 5th. I'm sorry. Do you see Alvarado? Do you trust any of these pitchers for the Phillies? It's one of those times where I would ask Rye, but I haven't seen him last few days, so I'd be interested to get his take as to whether you have any faith in these Phillies relievers. Wheeler's been good. If you're going to play first 5, I could see leaning towards the Phillies. Potentially, Wright is 13-2 pitching at Truist Park this season. He won 21 games. He's no slouch by any stretch of the imagination. And even though the Phillies had to use a bunch of their the Braves had to use a bunch of their bullpen yesterday. If you look, they didn't use a lot of high leverage guys. They used Chavez, they used Lee for an inning, they used McHugh, and then they used Stevens for the last 2 frames. But we didn't see, some of the guys that you would have necessarily expected to see. They didn't throw Jansen in there to try to stop the bleeding. They weren't like the Mariners, who we'll get to in a minute. You didn't see Minter. You didn't see anybody you didn't see Iglesias or anybody like that. It'll be interesting to see how the bullpen situation plays out for both of these teams in this game. I'm going to lean towards Atlanta just because they're at home and, they rallied late. But it's like you guys said, this could go either way. That's why the line's only sitting around, I think, minus 125 or so on the money line. Okay, it's bumped up slightly depending on the book. It was 125 last night. Now it's between 133 and 145, depending on where you look. Going to be an interesting game there. Yeah, Nerfy is always a good bet. Wheeler has pitched well. So has Wright. And in the other game, Darvish and Kershaw, it's going to be – I think runs are going to be at a premium there. You look at Darvish. While he struggled against the Dodgers this season, he was 1-3. His ERA was only 2.52 in 4 starts, covering 24 innings. Kershaw only gave up 1 run in 2 starts against the Padres, covering 12 innings. So I don't think we're going to see an offensive bonanza early like we did last night, because we talked about it yesterday at length about how nobody wanted to see Mike Clevenger start game 1 of a playoff series, but that's where the Padres found themselves because they couldn't close out the Mets in game 2. Had they done that, then they could have had Musgrove. But, Blake Snell sucked in game 2. Couldn't find the strike zone there. Right over 3.5 strikeouts. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, he's not going to – you have to think he's going to pitch better than Fried did. He averaged almost a strikeout an inning during the regular season, 174 punch-outs and 180 and a third. And you've got Schwarber at the top of that lineup, who strikes out a lot. And you've got some of those other guys in the lineup for the Phillies. They're not adverse to creating their own wind tunnels. Just looking at the regular season numbers for Philadelphia, you take a look here, and what do we got? Hoskins struck out 169 times. Schwarber 200. Castellanos 130. Even Realmuto struck out 119 times in 504 at bats. So you're talking, in the case of Schwarber, it's better than 1 out of every 3 ABs. In the case of Hoskins and Castellanos, it's about 1 out of 4. Realmuto, slightly better than 1 out of 4. Or slightly worse than 1 out of 4, I should say. But even guys like Bryson Stott, 89 punch-outs and 427 at-bats. Harper fanned 87 times and 370. And even here in the postseason, they've played only 3 games, but Hoskins and Schwarber have both fanned 5 times. Hoskins has 14 at bat. Schwarber has 12. So you have to think that the potential for Wright to get there is pretty good. I think I ran him up at 4.5, over 4.5 because it was slightly plus money. But yeah, I think it's a pretty safe bet. Dodgers money line or Pods plus 1.5. Well, like I said, it's Kershaw and Darvish. San Diego's bullpen pitched well yesterday. I'll give them credit for that. What else can we say about that situation? Like we said, Clevenger was terrible. We're just going to take a look and see who they used yesterday, because once it was 5-3 and then it just sat there for a while, I kind of got bored and didn't pay attention. Wilson for an inning and a third, Johnson for 2, Hill for 1, Martinez for 1. Gee, they didn't use Josh Hader. What a surprise. Because then the game probably would have ended up about 12-3. Dodgers used Phillips, Vesia, Gratterall, and Martin. Good to see that, they left Kimbrel off the division series roster. I know everybody really disappointed about that, especially Reichel, because if you wanted to bet against the Dodgers with the run line, he would have been a prime example of why, because Kimbrel was prone to turning 2 or 3 run saves into 1-run games in a hurry. I think he didn't get his first 1-run save until mid-August. Both these teams can hit, but if you look at the matchups as far as guys that hit against Kershaw from this San Diego team, there aren't a lot of good options. You look here, and I was looking at this earlier when I was putting together the card, and if you're a Padres hitter against Kershaw, you're pretty much terrible. So let's go down the list here. Alfaro's 2 for 11, struck out 7 times. Josh Bell is 0 for 5. Cronenworth is 4 for 18. Drury is 3 for 20, and he's fanned 10 times. Trent Grisham's 3 for 15. Ha-Sung Kim, 1 for 6. Myers is 9 for 52. Austin Nola, 1 for 10. Jurickson Profar, 2 for 11. Soto's 1 for 8. He struck out 3 times. So basically the best option you have is Manny Machado. He's 9 for 35 with 3 home runs, but he's also fanned 8 times in those at-bats. As a team, current Padres have a 180 batting average in 200 plate appearances against Kershaw, 8 walks, 59 strikeouts. They have hit 9 home runs, so there's that. But based on that, if Kershaw can go 6, maybe 7 innings, which is questionable because we know how shortened the leashes are for starting pitchers, I'm going to lean towards the Dodgers on the money line. I think their bats are capable, especially with San Diego struggling against the Dodgers all season long, and that's still got to be in their head. I think they struggled early yesterday. I don't trust them enough. DraftKings has the Nerfy boosted to plus 100 for the Dodgers game. That's a good jump. I would be jumping on that like there was no tomorrow because, like we said, Darvish, despite losing 3 of 4 starts, had an ERA of 2.52, and like we said, Kershaw gave 1 run in 12 innings against San Diego. You just look here at numbers for these guys. Darvish's first inning ERA this year was 5.40, but a lot of that was early in the season. Kershaw, let's see. His ERA in the first was 0.82. 2 earned runs in 22 starts in the first inning this season. I know everybody wants to talk about how Darvish was great at Petco Park. He wasn't so great on the road, but he pitches all right in Dodger Stadium. And he got better as the season wore on. His ERA was 3.41 in the first half, it was 2.71 in the second half. And for his issues on the road, his ERA was still a respectable 3.5. He won 9 games on the road this season. And his whip was only 1.009 away from Petco Park. And strangely, he had a better strikeout to walk ratio. It was 4.72-1 at Petco. It was 5.89 on the road. 112 strikeouts against 19 walks. And he gave up the same amount of home runs, but he threw 21 1/3 more innings on the road than he did at home this season. I would be jumping on the Nerfy at plus 100. I mean, why not? Yep, Kershaw is 6-0 at home. That is also very true. His problem was he didn't get to pitch the whole season because he missed chunks of time with the back and everything else. But yeah, he's still an excellent pitcher at Dodger Stadium, especially if you look at his career numbers there. Let me pull it up because I wrote about this game yesterday, so I don't have all the numbers right in front of me. But Dodger Stadium in his career, Kershaw 205 career starts. He's 105-40, so a 724 winning percentage, a 222 ERA, a 0.974 whip, 318 walks, 1,534 strikeouts over 1,356 and 2/3 innings. So Kershaw is pretty tough to beat at Dodger Stadium. And in case you were wondering how he does against the Padres, 23-9 over 45 career starts, a 203 earned run average, a 0.959 whip, 83 walks, 310 strikeouts over 292 innings. We just talked about how nobody on the Padres seems to hit him very well at all. Benjamin Jacobs says -1.5 with the Braves and under 7.5. I'd probably be more inclined to take the Braves on the money line than the run line, just because we know Philadelphia can mash. We don't know how great the bullpens are. The weather in Atlanta, let me take a look. It's only a couple hours from here, but it's been rain. I know there's rain in the forecast here later this afternoon. I'm just going to check and see what it looks like in Atlanta right now. They've got some light rain showers. Winds only about 8 miles an hour from the south. Hopefully there won't be a rain delay in this game, but you never know. And if that's the case and you end up with a delay that's long enough that it's going to knock out that could knock out the starters, then you've got the bullpen in there, and then you have a giant mess. But according to the weather, there's a 98% chance of rain and thunderstorms around 3 o'clock. That'll drop to 90% at 4 and 67% at 5. So we'll have to see what Mother Nature has in mind for this series. If I had to make a choice, I'd probably just chase the Dodgers and stay away from the run line with the Braves. Like I said, we saw, 13 runs in the game yesterday. If they get into the bullpens, anything's possible. Will anyone defeat the Yankees? Well, let's be fair. The Yankees were fortuitous in some ways yesterday. Quantrill threw probably his worst pitch of the season on that one that Rizzo ended up putting into the seats. And he picked the worst time to throw it, obviously. As far as them being mighty, I don't know necessarily how mighty they were. They scored 4 runs. And I get that the argument is, well, they only gave a 1. But, momentum is only as good as the next day's starting pitcher, like I said yesterday. One thing we did talk about was Harrison Bader was somebody you could chase for a prop against Quantrill because of the fact that he was 3 for 3 going into the game against him. Though we did say to take Donaldson, and he had 2 hits. Of course, he got thrown out trying to stretch one out for a double because he sat there and watched the ball. So there was that. But, you have to be concerned about the Yankees' defense without LeMahieu, because now you've got Torres playing second. You've got Kiner Falefa playing short. And if there's a guy that Reichel hates as a Yankees fan, it's Kiner Falefa being your starting shortstop. He committed an error yesterday. He bounced into 2 double plays. And, you could have him commit an error at the wrong time, and then all of a sudden you could turn something that was a win into a loss. And let's not forget, Cleveland was 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position yesterday. They had opportunities. They just couldn't cash them in. Can you foresee the Yankees being that lucky again? I'm not necessarily sure. They also benefited from an error by Gonzalez out in right field on Kiner Falefa's hit because should have been a single. He ended up going to third, and that led to Trevino knocking him in with a sacrifice fly to give him a 2-1 lead in the 5th. But, the Yankees, they only had 5 hits. I get 2 of them were home runs, all well and good. I get that, Judge stole a base. He was still 0 for 3 with a walk and struck out 3 times. Tomorrow you've got to face Shane Bieber. And we saw what Bieber did to Tampa Bay. I know Cortez is going for the Yankees. I know Reichel was clamoring there. Cortez should have started game 1 instead of Cole. But you can only walk that high wire act for so long. And we know the Yankees bullpen isn't great. They lost Efros because he needs Tommy John surgery. Chapman's not on there. If it's late in a close game, do you want to rely on guys like Loaizaga and Clay Holmes and Wandy Peralta to close it out? And that's a concern. Cleveland definitely has a good bullpen with Clase, and Karinchak is good, and Eli Morgan has been effective. I just don't know if Cleveland can get some offense, the Yankees could be in trouble. I'm not saying Cleveland's going to win the series necessarily, but I think they're better than they looked yesterday. And, the numbers are going to show that they're not going to go 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position every night. Now, when we talk about teams that had a big lead and couldn't hold on to it, because we talked about how Philadelphia barely hung on, you got the Seattle Mariners. We talked about how they did a number on Toronto when they came back down 8-1 the other day to win 10-9. And you look yesterday, and they were, kicking Houston around pretty solidly. They chased Verlander early, which was disappointing because I expected better from Verlander. We talked about it at length about his numbers against the Mariners in his career. Plus side, we did say to take Ty France on the total bases prop. He went 3 for 5 and drove in 2 runs. But, the Mariners, they led 6-2 after 3.5. They were up 7-3 after 7. They were still up 7-5 after 8. You bring in Paul Sewald, who, I know he's had his struggles against Toronto, but, he was still the de facto closer. He gets Vasquez to ground out. Then he hits a guy. Then he strikes out Altuve, who I don't know what the hell Altuve was thinking up there in that at-bat. because he missed two pitches that were dead in the middle of the zone. So you got 2 outs, and you got a guy on. He gets in front of Pena 0-2, wastes the pitch down and away, and then Pena pokes one into center field. But then Scott Service, rather than giving Sewald a chance to close it out, goes and brings in Robbie Ray, a guy who started game 2 of the series against Toronto. And let's face it, he was not good. What did he do against the Blue Jays? Let me take a look here, because God knows it was not pretty, because he was chased early. He went 3 innings, gave up 4 runs on 6 hits, gave up 2 homers. Granted, he only threw 56 pitches. Well, I got news for you. He only threw 2 yesterday. Got ahead 0-1 with his, sinker there, and then left a sinker about belt high on the outer third of the plate and watched it rocket out of the stadium and into the cheap seats in about 0.2 seconds. Because you can't throw a pitch like that to Jordan Alvarez. What the hell are you thinking? What was Service thinking? Why do you bring in this guy? It was ridiculous. And, that's why Seattle found themselves not being in the playoffs for 2 decades, because of stupid plays or stupid calls like that, dumb pitches. I know anybody else say, well, any pitch could be a bad pitch, because, we used to watch Ivan Rodriguez and Vlad Guerrero and guys that would hit balls that were supposed to be for an intentional walk. But still, outer third, belt high, where the hell do you think that pitch is going to end up? So Seattle finds themselves down 1-0. They'll have Luis Castillo going tomorrow in that one against Framber Valdez. Let me ask you guys, do you think the Mariners can pick themselves up off the deck after that? Or is Houston just going to roll over them and move on to the ALCS? It's going to be a big thing to look forward to. DE asking about college football, asking about James Madison. James Madison's a great story, because last year they were in the FCS. They moved up this year. The sad part is they're not eligible to win the Sun Belt, because they're still technically transitioning to the FBS level. They're facing Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern is a good offensive team. We watched them put up 45 on Nebraska. We watched them put up 34 against Ball State. Saw them hang tough at Coastal. You look at the lowest point total that Georgia Southern has this year is 21, and that was a loss to UAB. But you take a look at the rest of their numbers, they blew out Morgan State. That's not a surprise, Morgan State being an FCS program. Like I said, they scored 45 against Nebraska. They scored 34 against Ball State. They had 30 against Coastal. They had 33 against Georgia State last week. Kyle Van Treese, he's a guy I'm very familiar with. He spent the first few years of his career playing at the University of Buffalo. He's played well in this system. The impressive thing for him, 283 dropbacks. He's been sacked twice. One thing he's got to cut down on, he's got to cut down on the turnovers. He's got 13 touchdowns, but he's got 11 interceptions. Jalen Wright and Gerald Green, a pair of good running backs for Georgia Southern. They combined for 837 yards and 12 touchdowns. Derwin Burgess Jr. and Caleb Hood and Jeremy Singleton, they've all got over 30 catches, over 340 yards receiving. Amari Jones is a good fourth receiver. Georgia Southern is basically flipped over from being the ever-popular, triple option type team to, all of a sudden they're basically a run and shoot or the air raid. But I like James Madison. Very good team, very underrated. They beat App State on the road in Boone, where they came back in the second half of that game. They were down 28-10 at the half, They were down 28-3 in the second quarter and outscored App State 29-0 over the last 32 and a half minutes of that game. I like James Madison. Like I said, if you look, they're skill players. Centillo played at Colorado State before he went there. Black is a good running back. Brown is a great receiver. The Dukes have a lot of talent that could probably be playing in a Power 5 school if they had so chosen. Thornton has 32 catches for over 500 yards for them. They've got 5 guys with over 100 receiving yards. They got 4 guys with over 150 rushing yards. And the Dukes, they play good defense. And that's something that you don't necessarily see a lot in the smaller conferences because, we've seen it a lot. I mean, we talk a lot about the Big 12 that way too, where it's defense optional. But you look, they're 3-0 in the Sun Belt. They're 6th in the nation in points for. They're 14th in points against. They average 44.2. They give up 15. They're throwing for about 275 a game. They're running for 214. They're giving up an average of 227.4 yards a game this season. They force turnovers. They get after the opposing teams. Let me see if they've got the total set for on this game because I haven't checked it out in depth yet. Let's see. Where is it? There we go. I don't know if I have to write this game. Oh, no, I don't. Okay. 66.5. That seems a little high. Now I see now it's up at 67 at some books. James Madison's favored by 11.5 or 12. Let me see what Georgia Southern's actual numbers are. They're scoring 37. They're giving up 30.3. Strangely, Madison's gone over in 4 of their 5 games this season, mainly because of their own offense. But this is going to be the highest total that James Madison has seen all season long. You're looking at their highest total in the first 5 games was 60.5, and that was against Middle Tennessee in the season opener, and they stayed under that by almost 10 points. I get that they've gone over in the last 4, but the totals in those games 54.5, 56.5, 51.5, and 55. They got to 70 combined points with Norfolk State, but again, that's an FCS school. They got to 60 with App State, 53 with Texas State, 62 with Arkansas State. You look at the totals that Georgia Southern has had. They had 53.5 in the opener against Morgan State. Then it was 64 with Nebraska. And I'm just going with the totals before I go with what the actual combined scores were. 59 with UAB, 67 for Ball State, 69.5 with Coastal, 67.5 with Georgia State. The combined points, 66, 87, 56, 57, 64, 74. So Georgia Southern split their 6 games in relation to the total. The problem is they haven't played a defense as good as James Madison's has been. The best defense they've probably faced is UAB's, and they only scored 21 in that one. And that game ended up at 56 against a total of 59. This total is 67. I think it's a bit too high. I would probably lean towards the under. I think James Madison will be complacent. Any thoughts on Marshall, Louisiana Lafayette? Louisiana Lafayette is terrible. They can't score. They can't stop anybody from scoring. They've lost 3 in a row. Marshall, I know they've lost a couple. They lost to Troy where they didn't score any points. Then they beat Gardner-Webb in a game where Columbi got knocked out. He's supposed to be back tonight. Marshall's at home. I like the line a lot better when it opened at 7. I think they'll still cover at 10.5. I don't think I wouldn't take it a whole lot higher, but you look at Louisiana in their 2 road games this year. They went to Rice. They lost by 12. They went to Louisiana Monroe. They lost by 4. They were favored in both of those games. They're 2-1 at home, but this game's not at home. They're on the road. And you got to remember, Marshall, even though they lost those games to Bowling Green and Troy before they beat Gardner-Webb, this is still a team that went into South Bend and beat Notre Dame. They've got a great running back in LeBourne. I think he's 4th in the country in rushing yards, and he's played 1 less game than most of these guys that are at the top. I think Marshall's going to take care of business and put the boots to Louisiana. And I think the reason why people are looking at the total going under is you look at the numbers here, and Marshall is 74th in scoring offense, but they're 17th in scoring defense. They only give up 17 and change a game. Or I'm sorry, 16.2. Meanwhile, you're looking at Louisiana, and you look at their numbers. They only give up 20.4 points a game, which is 36th in the country. So you're not expecting a ton of offense there. Just going to see if we have any weather to talk about up there for tonight. Partly cloudy right now as we get closer to kickoff. Let's see. Let's take a look. Okay. Yeah, the weather forecast goes up to about a 65% chance of rain and thunderstorms in the evening up there in Huntington. So that could wreak havoc too, make for a slick ball. I mean, sure, you could get some turnovers, but I think Marshall should win. And I can see it staying under. I actually put the under on one of my slides. I just don't see a whole bunch of points there. As far as underdogs, as of right now in college football, I'll take a quick look and see if there's anybody I like. Not Temple. I think Kansas could be a viable underdog. I see that line has shifted again. It was 8 yesterday because they're saying Daniels won't play or is doubtful to play with that shoulder injury. But, hey, Jason Dean was no slouch. And I get Dylan Gabriel might be back for Oklahoma, but that doesn't fix Oklahoma's defense. Kansas +9 could be a live line there. Illinois +6.5 against Minnesota. That game could be a rock fight because both teams like to run the ball. I get Minnesota has had a week off since they lost to Purdue. Hopefully for them, they'll have Ibrahim back because he didn't play. He was a late scratch pretty much in that game against Purdue. Tommy DeVito's questionable for Illinois as well with an ankle injury. Hopefully he can play. But Illinois could be a viable option because that game could be a low-scoring affair. I never trust Texas, but I don't know if they can cover 16.5 against Iowa State. I don't know what I think about Penn State yet at Michigan because Michigan is a hostile environment. Surprisingly, BYU is now an underdog at home against Arkansas. So, I mean, you could look there as a possible option. It's only 1.5 points, but I mean, BYU is always tough in Provo. Tennessee, I have to wait and see because if Bryce Young doesn't play, I'd be jumping on Tennessee with the points because we saw them struggle against Texas A&M. So that's something to look for. Oklahoma State TCU is basically a coin flip because TCU has the 3.5 point line as the home team. I was going to say NC State, but Devin Leary is out indefinitely with an upper body injury. You think it was hockey with the way that's listed, but so he probably won't play this week. Just scrolling through, see if there's anything else out here that jumps out. Washington, I don't know what to make of them after they lost 2 straight. You could, if you wanted to be a masochist, you could take Colorado State with the points. Hey, they're coming off a win over Nevada last week, and they get Utah State. Probably the biggest disappointment in the Mountain West. You look, and Millen's still questionable for Colorado State, but they're getting 11 points at home against a Utah State team that's 2-4. Sure, they beat Air Force last week. That was a fluke. Memphis at East Carolina potentially because there could be a ton of points in that game. Memphis is getting 4.5. The pillow fight of the century, it's New Mexico State. That game's in Las Cruces. So you could probably take New Mexico State with this getting 6.5 or 7. Those are probably the big ones. Because Kentucky, I don't know if Will Levis is going to play this week or not. They're getting points right now against Mississippi State. Obviously, if Kentucky plays the backup, they're screwed. But Colorado State, is viable. I guess LSU could be viable. They're only getting 3, though, so against Florida in the swamp. What else did I say here? Just scrolling back up the list. Like I said, maybe Oklahoma State at 3.5. Alabama, Tennessee, I've got to find out what Bryce Young's status is. BYU over Arkansas, I think, is a solid option. Won't touch Colorado with a 10-foot pole. Won't touch Auburn with a 10-foot pole. Iowa State, maybe. Illinois, plus 6.5. And like I said, I like Kansas. Because I just don't trust Oklahoma's defense. Has been horrible. Yeah, exactly. DE. Kansas hung with them, and you got to take Kansas with the money, or tease it, get yourself some more points. Why not? Braves money line, Dodgers money line, Oilers and Canes. Yeah, I like the Oilers over Vancouver and Carolina. You've got to take because Columbus doesn't have. It's not Corpusalo. He's out. Merzlikins isn't starting either. It's hold on, I got to pull it up because I was looking at this earlier. It's Daniel Tarasov, who is not necessarily good. He was. Let's see. Let me see what he did last season. Let me see if he did anything last season. Okay, last season he was 0-2 with a 240 goals against, 937 save percentage, 4 games, 3 starts. Still don't like him. They also recalled Jet Greaves from the minors, so 2 nobodies in net for Columbus, Carolina. They got a lot of weapons offensively. And Vancouver, I feel bad that they've got to go to Edmonton. Still got to stop Connor McDavid. Still got to stop Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman. We'll see Jack Campbell make his debut with the Oilers. We'll see how that pans out. Nathan, there's no way in hell I would touch the Canadiens. And it's not just because they're playing the Maple Leafs. I wouldn't touch the Canadiens pretty much against anybody. They're starting 4 rookie defensemen in their top 6 on the blue line. Jake Allen is still their goaltender. You're facing one of the most dangerous offensive units in the National Hockey League. The Leafs have a great top 6. They bolstered their bottom 6 forwards this year. It wouldn't surprise me if they put 40 shots on net in this game. And guys like Nylander and Marner and Tavares and Matthews and Bunting, they're going to have a field day out there because you've got 4 guys that literally are rookies on the blue line for the Canadiens. They're 2 guys that have actually played in the NHL or guys that are probably second or third pairings. And like Gio said, like last year, if you're playing Montreal, it better be the over. And that's something I've got on the screen too. Speaking of, before we get to those, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. If you can't get enough picks here and you want to get more of my picks, my best premium bets are on the Winners and Winers handicapping website under the expert picks. You can either get parlays, or if you change the number in the link in the show box below from 12 to 11, you can get my single game picks. I usually do 3 to 5 of those a day. And if you use the promo code that's in the show box, you can save 60% off the sticker price. And that includes, if you want to do it for a week or you want to do it for a month, or they've even got season packages out there where you'll get every pick that I put out for the entire NBA season and the entire college basketball season and the NHL season and the rest of football season. Those are all there. And if you use the promo code, hey, you can save 60%. It's a good deal, right? 60% is bigger than half. I mean, that's math, kids. Write that down. And, of course, be sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell so you'll never miss the show. Of course, as we always say, if you haven't lived under a rock, we're here, 2 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. And, of course, make sure you check out the Winners and Winers website and the YouTube channels for free picks all day. We try to cover every game that's relevant on a daily basis. So get there, check it out. Like I said, check out my premiums. Save yourself some money. Win yourself some money because we've been on a roll. Last time my best bet was the Lightning Rangers under 5.5. We clearly came under that because they totaled 4. But good showing all the way. Don't worry, we're not done yet, Andrew. Let me block this tool here. There we go. And that takes us to, of course, 2 for the money. Look, there's the Carolina Hurricanes over the Blue Jackets. I get that the Blue Jackets got Johnny Gaudreau. I get that you have Patrick Lane and all those guys. But when you don't have any goaltending, it's tough to win hockey games. And I don't trust a guy who's made 4 starts or 4 appearances against a guy in Frederick Anderson who's good in the regular season. Carolina's got a lot of weapons. I think they should win that one convincingly. Bill, actually, Bergeron re-signed. He signed a 1-year deal, so he's back. Not sure how crazy I am about that, but they need to have some. They need to have some veterans to work with because you look at that team and they're minus some pieces. I'm trying to remember who's out for them off the bat. Oh, Marchand is out because he had that hip injury. McAvoy is out. Grelchik will be out till late October. Strawman won't play tonight. Taylor Hall's questionable. They'll have Linus Ullmark in net. Washington, Hagelin just had surgery. He's out. Tom Wilson's out till December, probably with a knee. Backstrom's out till January. Still got Ovechkin. Darcy Kemper gets a chance to make his first start since coming over as a free agent in the offseason. I'm going to lean towards Washington, but I'm not crazy about it because I don't like the Capitals. Jim is a big Capitals fan, but that should be an interesting game for sure. Blackhawks and the Avalanche, you see I put the over here because if I told you to take the Avalanche, people would be yelling, they're minus like $6 billion. And even the puck line, minus 1.5, I think was, let me see. The lowest money line you'll find on Colorado is minus 400. Puck line minus 1.5 is about minus 150. Minus 2.5, you get to plus money. But trying to ask for a team to win by 3 goals, even against a team like the Blackhawks that are retooling, they dealt away DeBrincat, they dealt away Kirby Dach. They've got Peter Mrazek starting in goal. It sounds like a surefire recipe for failure, but I don't know if they'll get outscored by 3. I do look for it to be a high-scoring game. Colorado, of course, they get to raise the banner tonight, get their rings and all that stuff. Should be a high-scoring game. I see that number has actually come down. It's still hanging around minus 115 for the over, but I think that that's going to be a 5-2, 6-3, whatever type of game. Maybe 5-3. But I think it'll end up over the narc. Like we said with Montreal, when you bet Montreal, you might as well bet the over. Because the puck line or the money line on Toronto is about minus 260. And, I try to avoid some of those numbers as much as I can because I don't want to overload it with all those big numbers. Yeah, between 245 and 265. Puck line anywhere between minus 105 and plus 105. So, of course, shop around if you're going to do that. A couple of the books have bumped the total on this game to 7, and over 7 is plus money. I can see them getting to 7. I don't know if I want to chase them going beyond that number. But hey, anything's possible in the National Hockey League, right? And the Dodgers over the Padres, like I said, if you want to, I would definitely play them on the run or on the money line. Run line is a little tricky because you never know what's going to happen with the bullpens. But I like the Dodgers to take a 2-0 series lead. San Diego has to show me that they can actually beat the Dodgers consistently. And like I said, last night's loss was their 15th in 20 meetings this season. That takes us to 4 for the show. Hey, speaking of the Maple Leafs, why not? Austin Matthews, over 1.5 points. In his career, Matthews has pretty much owned the Canadiens. 22 goals and 12 assists in 27 career games in the regular season against them. In his season openers, Matthews has scored multiple points in 4 out of his 5, including that 4-goal outburst in his first NHL game against the Senators back in 2016. He scored twice against Montreal in his last game against them back in April. And like we said, you've got 4 rookie defensemen in your top 6 for the Canadiens. It's going to be a tough night trying to stop him. Like I said, I was going to lean towards the Braves here. I like Wright a little more than I like Wheeler, but I expect it to be a close game all the way, provided Mother Nature cooperates. Otherwise, all bets are off there. Gio was talking about the Oilers before. As you see, I like them over Vancouver. Edmonton still has a lot of weapons. They hope they've improved their goaltending with Campbell instead of Mike Smith. We'll see how that plays out. Edmonton seems to be a pipeline for ex-Leafs to go. Hyman's there. Now Campbell. Tyson Barrie was there last year. But, hopefully it pans out for him over there. And Kershaw, over 5.5 strikeouts. We talked about how poorly the Padres hitters are against him in his career. I think he can get to 6. He struck out 9 in 5 innings against the Rockies in his last start of the regular season. He's rested and ready to go here. If you bet the money lines on those, a little better than 15-1 is your return on investment. If you bet the run lines with the Braves and the puck line of obviously with the Oilers, and they come in along with the other two, a little better than 36-1 on your money. And that'll bring us to the shot in the dark. Trey Turner, over 1.5 total bases. He's hit Darvish fairly well, 6 for 17 in his career. I was looking between him and Freeman. Freeman is, I want to say 7 for 19 or something like that against him. So both those guys pretty good to look at. Harper has the best numbers against Kyle Wright of any Phillies hitter. There's not a ton of numbers because Wright hasn't been around that long. But 3 of 9, I think he is. Darnold, he homered yesterday and he doubled. He's had good success against Wheeler. Let me pull up what those numbers were. I have so many tabs open, it's ridiculous. So I have to bounce back and forth, figure out where the hell it is. Take a look. Where is he? Schedule. There we go. Also, just while I'm looking this up real quick, other news, Devontae Adams charged with misdemeanor assault after pushing over the cameraman the other day. Dak Prescott's going to test out his thumb this week, but they expect Cooper Rush to get the start for the Cowboys in that game against the Eagles. In his career, DeArnold, 7 of 15 against Zach Wheeler, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. I mean, when you're hitting 467 against a guy, that's a pretty nice number to have in your back pocket. Machado, like we said, he's the best option of a list of bad options. But he does have 3 homers against Kershaw in his career, and he's hitting 257. It's nothing to write home about, but it's better than everybody else on the team. So there's that. We talked about the Raging Cajuns and the Herd under 46.5. Both teams in the top 40 in the country in scoring defense. Louisiana's terrible offensively. Don't have a ton of faith in them. Darvish over 5.5 strikeouts is plus 120. Like we said, if he can go with any length in this game, which the Padres are going to need, let's face it. We talked about how Clevenger struggled yesterday. Darvish, in his games against the Dodgers, like I said, he was 1-3 with a 252 earned run average. 1-2. But he struck out 31 in 25 innings. So you have to think, even if he goes 5, and you'd like to think he can go deeper than that, he can get past this number. And if you want to climb the ladder a bit, go ahead. Right, like Brandon was saying, over 3.5 strikeouts, that's definitely an option. Provided, like I said, the rain doesn't interfere. I've got an over 4.5 because it's plus 114. He averaged 8.7 strikeouts per 9 this season. He's had some good success against the Phillies. Then a few shot props for you from the NHL. McKinnon over 4.5 shots. Let's face it, it's Chicago. They're a sieve. Matthews over 4.5 shots. We said he scores a ton of points in season openers. He has great success against Montreal, and Montreal has no defense. And Draisaitl over 3.5 shots. Made a lot of money on Draisaitl's shots props last year because they always set it low. Hopefully he'll get there in this one. Should you bet on these and they all pan out? 2,600 to 1 on the return on investment. Since there is no run line in here, that's why the number is the same. But plenty of good numbers out there. Of course, make sure you shop around, find the best numbers for you at whatever book is available to you. That will do it for the Wednesday edition of Just Parlays. We will be back tomorrow to talk about everybody's exciting Thursday night game between the powerhouse offenses of the Chicago Bears and the Washington Commanders. We will talk about Game 2 of the American League Division Series. We will talk about, let me double check. Yeah, we got a couple college football games tomorrow. One in the AAC, one in the Big 12. We'll talk about tiddlywinks and badminton, parcheesi, backgammon, hula hoops, Zima and Pac-Man video games. You name it. If it's something that we want to talk about, it's here, it's out there, and we'll cover it. And we'll always be here, of course, as the title of the show tells you, Just Parlays. For the Wednesday edition, for Winners and Whiners, and for Just Parlays with Chris King, I'm Chris King saying so long. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck with you and all your bets. Stay safe out there. And we'll catch you tomorrow. So long.